What's up again, everybody? I want to pose a question. Is intelligence a burden or a gift? And I imagine it would be a little bit of both. But if we were to look by evolutionary standards, intelligence in animals is used for a variety of different purposes. But as far as our conscious awareness of ourselves, our self-awareness, is this a gift or does it hold us back? And this may seem like a really simple question, but it's something I've thought about a lot, many times over many, many years. And every once in a while it just comes to mind, and it popped into my head just now. I started to put my phone up, turn it on. I haven't even thought about anything I plan to say, which I guess that's pretty common with me. But I guess I just wanted to pose the question. Maybe it'll be a shorter video. We as a species have the opportunity to do grand things, amazing things. But that requires the effort of individuals working towards the same goal, or at least similar goals. And it's not something that we should just expect people to do. Through the millions of years it took us to get here, we had different priorities in the past than helping to build local parks or giving money to a certain charity or helping, you name it, anything that has to do with society. We feel the need to express ourselves and we want to help other people. At least many of us do. And so this manifests in many of the types of societal charities and whatnot. I guess that's what I'm saying. And if you look at the whole of how society operates and try to get a general consensus, a picture of what are the commonalities, the common strings that tie all countries together and all governments, or at least for the most part. And it seems if you look below the surface, the media bullshit, don't watch the news, it's not worth it. If you really look below the surface and look at the stories of the people, not just the countries themselves, you find blueprints for a possible human connection towards one another, helping strangers, altruism, which we also see in the animal kingdom. It's a very interesting thing that we would sacrifice ourselves for other humans. Now, people would say, well, that's evolutionary. I mean, that helps preserve the species. Well, not if you're killing yourself and you can't have your kids. The idea is that the strongest survive. So why do we protect others? We do it because we care about people. I think that, if you exclude sociopaths and psychopaths and all of these, clinical terms for people who maybe have less empathy, let's just say those who have less empathy, even if you exclude them, we have a majority of people who do care about one another. And so now that we're consciously aware of our own mortality, we don't want to see others suffer because we don't want them to die either. And it's an interesting concept. It's something that we encounter every day, but when you really think about it, what exactly is that? Why have we developed this ability to think and use these opposable thumbs the way that we do? What is the evolutionary advantage that we're missing? Because, from where we can see, we're overpopulating ourselves. Human nature seems to have a dark side. And what I perceive anyway is that it's not really a fault of humans. Humans have evolved perfectly to work with one another. The problem is that, if you take an anthill, it'll be functioning perfectly. You put it next to another anthill, the battle will ensue. There's, if you take a wolf and put it in another wolf pack territory, battles will ensue. And what's happening is that we have forced ourselves into these smaller and smaller areas, and the battles are happening whether we like it or not. It's almost as if you could see it as nature's way of getting rid of overpopulation is to turn species against each other, to have territories. And so this is what's given me kind of an insight on countries, borders, and how important it really is in many cases. But that some certain people that lack empathy for others take it to an extreme because they want to have monetary profit. And the larger a society gets, the larger a government gets, the more corruption is swept under the rug, and the more people are allowed to slip by without having repercussions for their actions. So when somebody makes a huge mistake, whatever, they say, hey, I'll buy my way out of jail. I see this slowly changing with the social media. In other words, if somebody who is famous, commits some heinous act, the people can shame him, and often they'll lose their career. Nobody will want to work with them. But that doesn't work with billionaires, and that doesn't work with massive companies. In other words, Shell and Texaco don't really care if you protest their oil facilities. Sure, they want to put a pretty face on oil, and oil has its benefits. I'm not against that. That's another thing I've learned. It's like we're stuck using these fossil fuels for now, and even though we have the ability to push forward for new technology, we're also kind of stuck with the fact of transporting them, manufacturing them, and using so many of our energy facilities are using oil. I believe all the ones in Florida use oil, all of the power plants, and everyone's scared of nuclear. So I won't go into the nuclear debate. I'm fascinated with thorium reactors, and I'm also interested in nuclear power done right, not for the sake of weapons, but it's only because it's like it's like, here's all this power, right? People are scared of it because of the potential for disposal and fallout, and it's totally understandable. So it's just another thing we face. We as a species have huge decisions to make, and it's really hard to get people on board when you have special interests and lobbying groups which are buying our representatives. So in a small tribe, if you find out that one of your neighbors is paying off the shaman to side with him on stuff, the people will come down pretty hard on the shaman. They're expected to uphold honesty. So we have the same thing with judges in this country, although judges are bought off all the time. And in a small town, a judge may want to do right. In a larger city, the judge doesn't have any connection to that person, and they may not care. In a small town, a police officer may walk the beat and interact with the locals. In a larger city, he may be working on loan from another city in a place where he knows absolutely nobody, and all they do is drive around. It's not anyone's fault. It's society's fault. It's where we're at. And we point the finger at one another. The cops are to blame. The cops are beating the people. And then others are like, no, it's the criminals. And it's a little bit of everything that's caused by our, not just, being human, but also the few who take advantage of us, who create and manufacture and promote the prison industrial complex run by private companies. The same ones who have told us that cannabis is illegal because it's dangerous, and extremely addictive, and that no compound in it is legit. And then all of a sudden, now they've approved the first CBD drug, which is a CBD-based substance that is from GW Pharmaceuticals. And they're not even from this country. They're from the UK. And guess what? The FDA approved it. Guess how much treatment is? Something like $300,000 a year to take it. And it's an anti-seizure medication. You think anybody's going to be able to afford that? That's a perfect example of how we've fought for so long for something, and then it just gets dominated by somebody else. And it happens all the time. It's corruption everywhere. And I don't sit and dwell on it. I don't obsess about it. But it's a hugely important issue that it's hard to address, because no matter how accountable we hold other people for what they've done, somebody else just jumps right into that spot and feels no remorse or empathy, or just doesn't care, or can work around that, for the sake of profit. And there are a lot of honest people out there, and a lot of honest billionaires and millionaires. I'm not dismissing people who, just because they're rich. I'm just saying the ones with the most power often lobby the most, and therefore the average person feels like they're not heard. We're born as free spirits into this world, and we are prisoners from birth. And it's easy to ignore that for a while, but you can't ignore it forever, So what is this consciousness? What are we supposed to do with it? Do we fight for individual freedom? Or do we look at, the different, tiers of humanity, if you will? You've got you've got the workers, you've got the leaders. It's nonsense. Nobody is keeping tabs on the reasons why we do what we do. We're just doing our best to figure it out as we go. And social media has completely revolutionized how that's done. So it's pretty fascinating to watch. And so, if anything, I'm posing the question to you all, exactly why are are we here? Exactly what is our purpose, rather, for consciousness? Not why are we here, but why did evolution prefer consciousness? It seemed like it would get us in more trouble. You know, a self-awareness, rather. And I don't know. To me, it's a topic that, you know, never ends. So, thanks everybody. Thanks to my subscribers. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you to my Patreon subscribers. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Peace.